Time around, he's focusing on his Toastmasters journey, and he is relating all his speeches to some aspect of Toastmasters program. Please join me to welcome Carl Thormeyer.
All of you have seen this device. It's a nice piece of wood. It's been around 100 years. All the bruises it has. Now, do we know what we call this piece of furniture all together now? 1, 2, 3. Lectern. A lectern. Yes. I'm glad you all didn't say podium, because that would have been the wrong answer. That happened to me once when I gave a version of this speech in this club. But this is a lectern. A podium is a raised platform. Pod, like feet, you're stepping on something. So a podium, you can be on a podium at a lectern. And that is the difference. It's a Toastmastery kind of thing, and nobody believes it anywhere else, but it's a good definition to always remember. This is a lectern. Now there's one cardinal rule in Toastmasters about the lectern, and that is to never leave the lectern unattended. That means there's always somebody up here in charge. And as a past president of ours about 3 years ago, Angie Anderson used to say, you never know what this rascally lectern is going to do if you leave it alone by itself. Now there's a real reason for this. For those of you that are in the Navy and you're on a ship, and it's your turn to take the watch, you go up to the person who has the watch and you say, I'm ready to be relieved. And the person who is being relieved says, I stand relieved. And the person that takes the watch says, I have the con, or is ready to drive the ship. This is the same thing. When you are up here at the lectern, you have the con. And so if you walk away from the lectern unattended, there's no con. If you're on a ship and there's nobody driving the ship, you might crash the ship into a rock. Not a good idea. So somebody always needs to be at the lectern, relinquishing it, getting it one way or another, transferring control, and that's called basically in Navy parlance, having the con. So that's the cardinal rule. You never want to leave the lectern unattended. Now there's some tap dancing that goes on up here with the lectern. We trip over each other as we go by. We sometimes aren't really quite sure what to do and which way to go, and it gets a little confusing, and we kind of laugh about it and move on and maybe get a little embarrassed. But there are some very simple procedures that you can follow, and we won't have a problem. Now, first of all, as I mentioned earlier, someone always has the con at the lectern, so someone is always here. So a person coming up, the chair is going to greet that person as the oncoming speaker, and you're transferring the con. Now, how many times have you been in another organization and someone is up there, it's a big 1,500 people in the audience, and the person says, the next person to give their report is so-and-so, and you walk away. And a couple minutes later, the other person comes up, and this lectern's sitting out here by itself, and nobody's there, nobody's in charge. And that's not good. You always want to have somebody here. So when it's your turn, you're up here as Toastmaster or whatever function, and you are relinquishing control to someone else, make sure you stay here, greet the person coming up, don't just walk away. And the same is true at the end. Don't just walk away, but we'll get to that in a minute. Now, when you are transferring the con, if you will, up here at the lectern, there's a little bit of awkwardness. How do I move? Which way do I go? Am I crashing into somebody? And there are a couple of ways to solve that problem. First of all, the cardinal rule, another cardinal rule, I like these cardinal rules. But the rule here is that the person approaching the lectern passes in front. The person leaving the lectern passes in back. And the reason for that is we want the focus of the audience to be on the person coming up, not on the person leaving. So, Tom, as long as you're sitting there, let's pretending I'm introducing you, and the chair introduces Tom Shee. Tom comes up, I shake his hand, he's got it, I'm walking behind him, and I'm going to stay here until he acknowledges me, okay? And I've seen this happen, but this is how it's supposed to work. Now, let's do it again, and I'm not sure what to do. Tom Shee. Isn't going to do it. All right, you get the idea. We've seen this happen at Toastmasters, and we want to avoid it. The way to avoid it is always follow the rule that the person coming up to the lectern passes in front. The person leaving the lectern retreats to, or actually goes back and quietly gets out of the way. Now, there's an even better solution to this. It's a little awkward because you have to take your notes with you, and that's for the Toastmaster or whoever's in charge to use 2 chairs. Chair on this side, chair on this side. So when Tom comes up, Tom's he, and I've got him, he's got the con, I back up, this is a long way in this room, isn't it? And sit down over here, and I'm out of the way, and I haven't tripped over him or anything else. But if I'm always in that chair, then I'm going to have this little tap dance that we have up here. So thank you, Tom, for that. So that's would be the easy way. Someone's coming up from this side, shake the person's hand, and back off to the chair over here and sit down. So, but again, you have to remember one thing, is if you have Toastmaster notes, it's best to keep them in your hand when you're doing this, because they might be in the wrong place when you need them the next time. So use 2 chairs if possible. Now, when you sit down again, you want to wait for acknowledgement. We had, I'm going to pick on Tom again here. So let's be introducing Tom Shee, and everybody's cheering for Tom and applauding, and I'm backing off. And Tom starts to talk. I'm just going to stand here. He hasn't acknowledged that I have yielded the con. He hasn't said the old Navy parlance, I'm Mr. Shee and I have the con. All right? And the way you do that in Toastmasters, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. And I'd sit down. I had a member in a club that I belonged to once in Honolulu. He was an old guy. He was an old Filipino guy, about 80 years old, and he would stay up there the whole speech if you did. So we learned real quick. So Tom, thank you very much for this demonstration. So again, summarizing the lectern protocol is a simple matter. First of all, never leave the lectern unattended. Think of it as like we do in the Navy, that somebody has the con at all times. And if you use the rule of the oncoming person passes in front, the person who leaves passes in back, and if that's hard to do, then use 2 chairs. You will solve your problems with the lectern up here, Mr. Toastmaster.